welcome back to another edition of the Best of Three podcast. I'm Alvin. That's Tory. Tory, I feel like we've been kind of like what do they call them, like strange passage in the night, whatever that is. I think you're currently in Miami. I'm in Atlanta, but a few days ago I was in Miami
Yep.
and you were in Atlanta. So for the people, just to kind of level set here, it's late Saturday night. Just finished up with the women's final of the Miami Open, and Tori and I decided we're going to get together, kind of talk about that. The men's final hasn't happened yet; it's tomorrow, so let that be known. We don't know what's going to happen in that final, but it doesn't really matter
What
as it
trying to
pertains to
do?
this conversation. It kind of does. It matters. It matters. Let me not say that
Always
it
matter.
matters, but we have we can still get by with 97% of the information. So
100%.
Tori, I know you were intimately watching over the last few days, and I was pretty hands on the first few days. But before we get into that, tell me about this embassy suites that you're staying at. Like I want to hear more about it. I hear it's not your average
Oh my God.
suites of embassy.
So full disclosure, I'm in St. Augustine, and I was in Miami for a hot minute, and I decided to dart on back. We are in St. Augustine, the old city as they call it, right on
Yeah.
St. Augustine Beach. I have not been at a embassy suites this nice in a, dare I say, ever, Alvin. I mean, when I tell you this place, I have been to some pretty good resorts. Um, I work at a pretty nice country club in Atlanta. I mean, I know nice things. This is one of the nicest embassy suites I have ever stayed in. I mean, from the entrance to the pool to the I mean, even the breakfast. I mean, Albert, you feel like you're at a resort. They call it a resort,
Nice.
but I'm telling you, it's truly a resort-like setting. And I'm going to tell whoever the head honchos are, and obviously the manager here in St. Augustine Beach, the property here. I mean, kudos to you guys. This place was absolutely beautiful, and I have to say, I was completely blown away. Uh, not don't know what my perception was coming in, but whatever
Right.
it was 100% blown away. And I will be looking for properties like this every time I go somewhere. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
just hats off to the management here and the people that put together, because when I tell you the water's literally 100 yards, right outside the bedroom door. I mean, it's just nice, and it's so well laid out. Doesn't matter if
Okay.
you're here with the guys, here with the girls, here with the fam, or here on business trip. I mean, you'll have somewhere that you'll probably like. The staff couldn't have been nicer, but the beautiful property was what set it off. And, a lot of these beach towns, Alvin. Sometimes the properties can be a little dated.
I mean, I've been to St. Augustine. It's been since probably like 2000. I went in 2006, and all I remember is drive through cocktails and Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Well,
That's the only thing I have in my head from St.
right, and
Augustine's.
and of course Flagler and all that. So I came here many a time back when I was playing back 30 years ago when I was playing with Morehouse and with Georgia State. We always played that swing. It felt like we were playing Flagler, Stetson, and
Like
actually
Rollins or
and Rollins. Like
yeah,
it was either three of those four. It seemed like we caught them on the same trip all the times. All the time we came down. Bottom line, beautiful place. The city downtown. St. Augustine has really come up. They've done a great job of refurbishing it. Great little Spanish flair they got to it. The kind of the old conquistador kind of theme. They're
yeah,
restoring
yeah.
a lot of buildings around Flagler. I mean, it's gorgeous. It reminds me a little bit of Charleston and a little bit of Savannah, kind of that has that kind
Yeah,
of feel,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
a little bit of St. Pete, like the old St. Pete, the old
Sure.
side. So, but no,
Well,
beautiful place.
nice.
And shout out to Court Reserve, who is one of the leading court reservation systems out there that the missus works for. Tim and Ashley Owens, excellent job, great function they're having with their employees. So I tagged along with the missus for her work trip.
There you go. Tag
And
along when you can. Tag along when you can.
absolutely, absolutely, and
Um,
do it. Gave me a great time to catch up on some tennis and look at some things. And as I said, I'm raring to talk about so much tennis. I feel like, Alvin, in this tournament, I feel like, I know we'll get into the ladies later on, but I feel like we literally saw two divergent paths in between
yeah.
the men and the women this tournament. And I wanted to start off with some of the men. I watched each of the quarters a good bit. I watched obviously semis, and I was going to see the final tomorrow. I have to tell you that each of the matches were pretty solid. Um, Always fiercely contested as it's going to be at this level of tournament. But I felt like there were three temperatures I got. I want to start with Novak because I feel like he continues to defy age and continues to defy whatever you thought he may or may not have been able to do. He continues to tell you, buddy, I'm still the GOAT, and I'm not done until I say I'm done. And that's the first part of that thermometer. The thermometer. The second part that I came away with is there are still plenty of players that are up and coming that are and players that have been out there for a few years. Sorondolo and even my man Berrettini that are out there still grinding. That are still saying, "Hey, man, don't count me out just yet." Right? I still
But
got
wait a minute, don't count them out of what? Because yeah, don't count them out
But
of
that's
what?
the point. And let me get to the third part before, and I'll come back to the second. And I felt like I'm going to call it the rest of the top 10 was woefully absent at this tournament and also at Indian Wells, and with one or two exceptions, Tommy Paul being one or two of them, did not have the quarter or semi, and certainly not the final of the Australian Open to call it a long season. They're still a little wore out. For an example, I can give Madison Keys a lot of love. She's still coming down off a huge high of winning a Grand Slam.
Yeah, but she also, but I like Madison. Well, obviously, I like Madison for a lot of reasons, a kinship towards Madison Keys. But she came off of that. She even came off that Australian Open win and at least semifinaled her very next event. Like she semifinaled Indian Wells, right?
So I say that to say those are my three temperatures. Now you say for what? That's just it, Alvin. When the third level routinely is a little bit intermittent in their results, that means that 50 through 20 have a shot every other week.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we haven't even, as you already know, the clay court season is a grind. So when that clay court season kicks in, a lot of these players that aren't so adept on the clay they go into the clay court season against the South Americans and the Europeans, buddy.
Yeah.
You really need to kind of put your stamp on the U.S. mini hard court season before it swings back for the Open, because that's a real good time for you to kind of cash in. You know that a lot of those players live here in Florida. A lot of those players train out of here, so it's not like they're not used to heat and humidity. They're not used to the wind. They train here. They're here.
Right. So I want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Novak of it before we start kind of unpeeling the tournament and talking a little bit about well, kind of first of all, right? The Miami Open kind of ends it's the second half of the Sunshine Double, right? So we've got the Sunshine Swing, and it also puts a nice little period on the end of the first quarter of the season, right? So we're at the end of March here. Hard court events are wrapping up. We're going to be moving into clay court events after this, so it's a really good time for us to kind of sit down and talk not only about the event but also about like what we've seen so far.
What's unfolded up to this point?
From Melbourne to Miami, right?
Here, 100%.
The Novak of it all. So I saw Novak play against Musetti. I was in the stadium for that one, and that match kind of felt like a microcosm of everything going on in men's tennis right now. Like Yannick Sinner's at home, just chilling, practicing. Like he's feeling no sweat bullets from the rest of the tour catching up to him right now. He's like, it's fine. I didn't need these miles on the hard court anyways. Right. So Novak gets down early to Musetti, gets down an early break. He's down 0-2, and then just like decides like, oh yeah, you're not. These children, still children, are nowhere near my level. Rips off something like 8 straight games, and it was just like, oh, he put his chest into it. He's still outside of Sinner and Alcaraz who push him. He's still got these guys. The rest, no one else has anything on him, anything, and we haven't seen him against like Fonseca, right? And I think tomorrow's match against Mensik will be telling, because I feel like Mensik is the less sexy version of Fonseca. Like plays a big game, can kind of rip from all over the place, like the kind of that new school kind of player. But I do feel like, as cool as it is to see Novak do his thing and really like still be able to turn it on, It makes me worry about the state of the men's game right now. Especially with like, yeah, be very
Be
afraid.
very
Like,
afraid.
yeah, and
The
we've
men's
talked about
game
this.
right now is like Swiss cheese. I mean,
Yeah,
more holes in the Titanic. Now that I'm telling you, I walked away from this tournament and I said to myself, first of all, just look at the draw itself. Look at how many unseeded players, how many top seeds went out early. I think I kept on Saturday alone. 7 seeds went out on Saturday, Alvin. 7 on Saturday alone. 2 or 3 went out on Friday. Of course, that's probably the same, whatever that is, second, third round.
same round. Yeah,
But Alvin, let me say this, and let me say this to listeners and viewers at home. When you have, oh, that's right. It started with 3 seeds going out, not the least of which was Carlos, Daniil, and of course Lehechka, who was, we're going to say the lower seeds tend to be up and down because they may play a guy who's, let's face it, who's
right. Almost seated.
26, a guy who's
Yeah,
just missed seeded 33. They're not that far apart. We get that. But then on the next day, Draper, Rublev, Holger, Shelton, Ugo, Popperin, and your favorite GMP all went out on that day. And I got to tell you, call it what you will. I don't think any of these guys had a long enough run in Indian Wells in Australia or anything down, whatever since then. Shapovalov, you may give it a love to. Dallas was a long week.
Draper
Draper,
won
of course,
Indian Wells.
Draper,
Right, comes in.
and to the point, Draper and Mira are gonna get a pass because of
They get a
what they
pass.
did last week. 100%.
They get a pass.
To my point. But still, no, and we still have two big ones left. Stefanos and Tommy lost on that Sunday, which is the start of the third round. So then you come into the next one, and you got, of course, Berrettini taking down Deminar, and then you got Cerundolo beating Casper. So I'm just saying, to me, you start looking at some of these things. You can't really call it an upset when they get too deep, but I still call Taylor Fritz getting beat by Mensik an upset, and I would still say Zverev losing to Arthur Fils an upset. And even though it was closer and later in the rounds, 4th round is still an upset. You're still a 1 seed.
It kind of in reverse order. Like Taylor losing to Mensik, on paper it looks like an upset, and I've seen these guys like something about Taylor when it gets tight. Like when it gets to the kind of winning parts of matches, he kind of shrinks. Right. There was a
Wimbledon match with him and Nadal 2 years ago. Was it 2 years?
Right. Yeah.
Nadal
Maybe
hurt
3
his
years ago.
shoulder and had to survive.
Exactly. Exactly. And I always tell people, like, when it gets close, especially in tiebreakers, like, you need to be solid, but you also need to be bold. Like, there will be opportunities and you must take them. We get to make returns. We got to make a high percentage of first serves. But kind of outside of that, like, when we have chances, we must be bold. And Taylor is hitting backhands from the middle of the court, like, just not, like, looked like he was not trying to build anything. And we're talking, this is the third set tiebreaker here. This is for all the marbles.
Hoping that Mensik folded to the moment.
Exactly, and great players don't do that. They go get it done. Even Djokovic, who will lock down in a tiebreaker, his lockdown is not from a position of defense. He's just going safer targets, same conviction, but you leave one short, he will tag your ass for it. Yeah.
Well, I will add to that, Alvin, this. This is why I call it an upset. You can't pick and choose. Are you going to be the 3 seed or not? Either you're the 3 seed and we expect you to get to the final over an unseeded player, or you're not really a 3 seed. You may get more of a 13 seed. Now, I don't put that on Taylor. Taylor's a great player. If anything, I thought Mensik and him played exactly alike. So you got to know how not only to beat yourself, but also what that player is or isn't likely to do. You had 5 matches to scout and watch. He had the same. By the way, Mensik never broke Taylor. The entire match. Taylor broke Mensik and played a very solid second set, I might add. I don't think the third was that bad. Forget the scores. My point is that's a match for Taylor to win. And I'm going to go a different angle on you, Alvin. It's forget the match. How many more matches will he not get to play a Novak, to play a Nadal, well, Nadal's done, to play a Sinner, to play Carlos? To be the man, you have to beat the man. He lost in a round that was going to allow him a chance to get a look at the man. That's what is so troubling to me. Is it's not just the loss. Loss can happen at any time. These guys play 35 weeks a year. But this one is going up against the greatest of all time. You want to notch your belt, build your career on. That's right. I beat Novak at his prime in Miami, beat him down. I think personally, those are the moments that he's waiting for, and he stubbed his toe at this one, not getting.
Yeah, okay. I'll push back on that a little bit and maybe even reframe it, right? So Taylor Fritz as the 3 seed. Let's say Taylor Fritz as the 4 seed. Let's pretend like Yannick was here, right? I don't think of him as the 4 seed. I think you have to look at him as like, does this guy have the 4th best chances of winning this tournament? In any tournament where all the big guys show up, right? Thousands and Grand Slams. And when you say that, yeah, maybe he does, but his chances are pretty slim because I think there's a big gap after let's say the 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to take Zverev out of this. I know he's the 2 right now, but outside of Novak and Carlos and Yannick, the chances of someone else winning one of these big titles, obviously Draper did it a couple weeks ago, but I feel like there's a line there, and there's a pretty big chasm between 3, which is right now is probably Carlos, yeah, and then whoever's next, may that be Zverev or Fritz. Who Fritz actually beats Zverev pretty regularly now. And yeah, so it kind of is what it is. I'm starting to feel like we're in this space where the rest aren't, like, the top's just not very deep. It's pretty thin and it's pretty straightforward. So like someone like Taylor Fritz, it's like, well, okay, if Taylor Fritz is ranked 4 in the world or 5 in the world, what does that mean? Like, that means he's usually getting to the quarters of big tournaments and sometimes getting to the semis. Like, that's who he is. I don't actually expect anything more from him, and because there's nothing to tell me that I should expect something more from him. He's just as likely to make the final of a Grand Slam as he is to lose in the round of 16.
He becomes a 3 seed in a match in a tournament with center out. Alcaraz losing second round. I'm just saying, Alvin. He reminds me his
this event
up to this point. His results at this point remind me a lot of Tomas Berdych back in the day, who was a phenomenal. I think, no offense to Taylor, I think Berdych was actually a little better of a player, more complete player, in all facets. But it seemed like Thomas could never get past the semis. He could never break through. Mind you, some pretty tough talent to get through in his day. But I feel like, as big and as good as he was, Raonic was also very close to this. He reminds me more of Raonic than he does Berdych. But Berdych had that perennial, I could get to 2, maybe 3 semis in slams a year and never really be a threat to win one.
Right.
Which is
right. Yeah.
And I'm using that as my example, Alvin, for Taylor. And yet he's been gifted a few opportunities. That Nadal match when he played at Wembley, Nadal literally couldn't serve, Alvin. Couldn't serve. And his next match would have been against Kyrgios. I mean, you're like, talk about a good match. I mean, this is a perfect match for him. You know what I mean? And then he had a chance to play a slam. Would he have beat Novak today? Probably not. But
he's never actually beaten Novak, like, ever.
But
it's
play him. You got to play the guy a couple of
you
times.
got to want chances. Yeah, I don't know if he actually wants the chances, to be honest with you. Not to slam on Taylor, right? He's like, American tennis. I think on the whole, when you take a step back and look at the macro, I feel like men's and women's right now, American tennis is actually in a good place. I'm a little concerned about what happens on the men's side after these top 4 guys, but I like we're in a good place. We're getting swings at the or bites at the apple, if you will.
Getting swings at bat, no question.
Yeah.
Having said that, then you look back at players like Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton. I thought Seb Korda played a great match against Novak. I thought he was right there. I really thought that was a good match for Seb. He played, not only did I think that he played him close, I thought it was physically contested. I thought had he gotten that second set in the breaker, he could have gone 3, and I thought he may have believed enough himself that he could have done it. Came out sharp at a couple times. Didn't finish the set, but his second set was some great tennis. Sebastian Korda, you heard it right here, can hang with Novak for 1 to 2 sets if you had the right service on the right day. And I was very happy to see him kind of move his needle up a little bit. And to be honest, especially with the lefty, especially with the serve, I was a little disappointed that Ben didn't have the same length of tournament that he could have. And I would just love to see him have just a little better staying power, in some of these 1000s, especially with the loss of the Sinners and the Alcaraz. So same thing. My same argument for Taylor extends by definition to the other three or four.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of we're kind of going back and forth here between like what we saw this in the last 2 weeks versus what we've seen in the last 3 months. But I think it kind of all goes together, right?
It all goes.
Outside of maybe the top four, you can be safer and say top 10 to 30. They're all somewhat interchangeable, and I think it's kind of fluid. And that kind of speaks to the, they don't always. There's no one that's gonna. Very few players that will show up at the back end of events consistently. Like Musetti is as likely to get to the semifinals of a Grand Slam as Ben Shelton is, as Tommy Paul is, like as Stefanos is, like yeah, exactly. So I think that kind of speaks to
their fault, and I think that's my point, because I don't put Musetti and Berrettini in that same list of players. Me personally, I put them on the 30 and outside, not the 15 and in. And there used to be a difference from that kind of player. To your point, they fade to black a little more between the and that's with them, is that they don't. And just go back to the top part of my thermometer, and as soon as you keep talking about long year, a lot of tournaments, then you got this 37, soon to be 38-year-old that still plants a pretty good ball. I think he missed. I think the stat was he missed 6 serves in a 2-set match.
Yeah, it's tough.
There's been games, Alvin, where I've missed 6 serves.
Hey, if you miss 6 serves and you're still in the game, that's pretty good.
You see what I'm saying? Shamble the guy for allowing me to still hold, right? But my point being, 6 total.
Yeah.
6 total. And the guy giving returns up, so he got the best returns in the game ever. So I say that to say, Dimitrov plays some good tennis. I don't want to jump back and forth. Let me do this. Let me go through my quick notes, and I'll give you just a quick segment that I saw from the quarters, and maybe just dial in a little bit on the men's matches themselves. I mentioned Korda and Novak earlier in that quarterfinal match. I thought that Seve played solid. I mean, very well for him. Novak puts you in this vice grip, and then he just does not let up on you. I think he plays this through the middle, kind of hard ball right at you, making you change directions from awkward spots that he knows you're going to go for. He knows you're probably going to make the wrong decision. But when I tell you, Alvin, it was tactics 201 and 202. I mean, it was just, or maybe even a graduate level class. The guy was just hammering away at Seve because he knew Seve has a backhand as clean as his down the line. He just didn't give it to him that often. And so I was very happy to see that match. Seeing Novak's just his overall savvy, Alvin. I don't think there's many other ball strikers that are as talented as Sebastian Korda out there, or certainly top 10 level. But when you play, this is where I was getting at kind of earlier with when I saw my main man Taylor Fritz playing Mensick. They play a lot alike. You then have to know what your style doesn't like as well. Novak knows that Seve is a lot like him. Has the hands, has the on the rise, has a good backhand. So he says, you know what, Sebastian? Nice backhand. You're never going to get one clean look at it down the line. Those 3 winners out on me, that's all you're going to see. And that just tells me Novak's genius on the court, where you won't get the ball to hurt him with.
And, as an aside, on Andy Roddick's podcast a couple weeks ago, he had Rafa on, right? So they got a chance to talk for about an hour. And there've been lots of clips about it, and you can go find it everywhere on the internet. But Rafa did say something interesting about how he approached playing Novak, where he preferred to play up the middle to Novak because Rafa felt like taking his lefty forehand to Novak's backhand was not going to help him any, because Novak would step in. Either he could go back that outside cross court with him, or also had the ability to take that backhand, run it up the line, and then kind of put Rafa on defense. So the big takeaway is, for you junior players, for you lower level players, you can hit the ball at the middle. It's fine. It's fine. If Novak and Rafa can do it, so can you.
It's your best shot. It's the biggest target in the court. There's no angles. Hit it deep enough, no one can hurt you. And he does it off the returns. He does it off big on the rise backhands. And then it allows him then to counter punish from the corners without having to go side to side. He knows that next ball's coming back to the middle. It has to.
Right.
Or
Right.
you're gonna miss trying. So anyway, I thought that was a very good test for him. In the next match, the next quarter, he had Fees playing Mensick. Obviously, we know Mensick got through to all the way to the final now. So, and Fees is just coming off had a big win. I think this was a good tournament for Fees in general. I don't think that I saw a couple matches of his. He didn't. He continues to have trouble holding serve. He had trouble
Yeah,
holding
that's
serve in this one here. I think if he gets through those little serving issues, he can have games where his service goes away, and his game's built on that first serve. I would love to see him dial that thing in a little bit more. I think he's a very classy player. I love watching him. He reminds me a lot of Scope in a lot of ways. He has that kind of big serve, big forehand. Nice back, athletic. Um, you know,
has presence as well. Like he has
great
presence.
presence,
He
boys, right?
moment
But
doesn't seem too big for him. Yeah,
right, and
yeah,
like
he's
feel
good.
like
He's good for
every match.
tennis.
I love the kid, good looking kid too. I just
Yeah,
feel like
hey,
I would
brother,
hate
that's sharp. That's a sharp brother.
seriously, man. I'm just
Hairline cleaner than the board of health.
yes, sir. I love, and he thrives in that, right? It's like I just see him. You know, he needs to give Gail his barber. I'm sure they got the same barber over there. They got black
let
barbers
me
over in France. But
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. You mentioned, I think, you know what? This is a great time to take a trip to Coach's Corner. I know we usually do it at the end, but I want to do it right now because you said something about Arthur Fils' serve, right? And that's one of the things. I think that's probably his biggest. The thing that's holding him back the most, and I feel like my coach's eye sees, okay, that toss is way too high. And we often talk about like consistency in the toss. We want it to be repeatable, but a lot of that is in partly in due to like how high we toss the ball. So can you kind of break down what you've seen in his serve specifically, and then what some of our players or coaches that are listening out there, like something that you could probably give them to help them with their own serves.
I'm going to talk technique first. First of all, he's got a great serve. I think his toss is a bit high. It makes him vulnerable in matches that are, especially matches that are hidden stadiums where the wind is swirling. Um, the tournament, and you know how Florida is, Alvin. I want to say I sent you a screenshot of it. It was like between 15 plus mile an hour wind up to 25 mile an hour gusts. So you're not going to ever get a long period of time where you have no wind in those kind of conditions. And you're Miami, you're right there on the coast. So good luck with that. Not only is it a high toss, I feel like with a high toss, as you go through the motion, you have to hold your load too long, and it's too
Right.
easy to miss time. The quicker the motion, the less breakdown. The shorter the toss, the quicker the motion, right? And I feel those are a couple of things for a lot of the players back home. He's got a nice little pinpoint. He brings his foot up. He has a nice action on it. He's a tall kid, taller, 6'1", not quite 6'2". He has good action, got a good arm. He's a strong kid. So he's going to continue to get better with it. But in my opinion, if anybody would benefit from a more of a hybrid motion and a little bit of a shorter toss, to me, he doesn't have the number of aces that he should to justify the missed first. And then the second thing I'm going to talk about is tactics. And as a result, he doesn't seem to use the flat body near enough to really dial the target back in. A lot of guys out there, I see a lot of juniors just even in college. College, I think we almost go the other way. We don't use maybe one first serve a game, because you're trying to get that first serve and play and get the point started. But I feel like a lot of players, they will use a second serve for a first serve, but they're still going for the out wide corner. They're still trying to, slice you out wide into the side fence on the deuce. And you're like, the goal was to hit a first serve in, not to hit a lesser first serve to the same bad target. And that to me is really what hurts players nowadays is they're thinking, well, I didn't go for it because it wasn't flat. Well, you missed the first serve. You got to have a flat serve that can hit a target 90% of the time. And to me, that's where your flat body comes in. And to me, especially in the men's game, if you've got a weapon for a serve, then that means on a bad day, it's still a strength. You've got to be able to dial in one of those serves, your great flat, your good kick, or or your slice, that has to have a pretty dependable target. For most, that's the body serve. So between the technique, don't serve it, don't toss it too high. Too many things can go wrong. Legs can load too early, too little. The foot can come up, be a little off balance, just a few degrees. front, back, or to the side, you're missing that first serve. You're missing
Right.
connection on it. And I'll say with the tactics, bring those targets in, especially with a guy like Mensah, who's got pretty good returns. You don't need to give up a lot of missed first serve or opportunities, or give up too many second serve opportunities when you know the guy's not missing many returns either. And that's
Yeah.
the last thing I'll say about big serving. Know who you're playing. I had a pretty big serve, Alvin. I had mine up to past 135. I think my highest was like 139 back in the day. I had a pretty good serve. I'm a tall guy.
Must be nice.
If I had returns, I might have been somebody, right? But the point I'm getting at is, I say it to say, but I had this innate sense going against players that had great returns. They never saw my bigger serves. Maybe occasionally on a second serve, I was up in the game. I may have thrown in a second flat when they moved in. I might have thrown a flat body at them at 125 just because I knew they weren't expecting it and I had the lead. But I knew the guy wasn't going to hit a winner on me in the return, and he wasn't going to miss returns. Why did I need to spend so much energy trying to get my ace through him? It took me a long time to learn that. I had to get to college before I really understood that. Chuck McEwen, one of the lessons he taught me when I was at Georgia State, he was like, Hawkins, nice serve, but it's coming back. And the sooner you get through your head that it's coming back, the sooner you're going to get ready for that next ball. And I never forget him saying it. I'm thinking my serve's coming in slow. No, at that level, they all have returns. So
it's
you
coming
know
back.
what that means for the pros. So I feel like he just stubs his toe a little bit, Arthur. He gets that part fixed up. Again, lowers the toss, maybe a hybrid motion. You saw what happened to Madison. I mean, talk about somebody who changed the motion a little bit and had some great success. Her motion's a lot shorter, a lot smaller.
Safer too. Like she's not double faulting anymore. Like, which
You know
is
what
an
I'm
amazing
saying?
thing.
And he continually runs into trouble with the serve. I don't care who he's against. That doesn't matter. It's him. It's toss. It's height. It needs to be simplified. Sooner the better between toss, between target. But either way, that's the biggest thing for him to kind of get down
And
and really dial in.
The height of the toss thing, and I just want to make sure people can kind of conceptualize this. Like, we talk about time a lot here, right? And what, like, the amount of time that you have to get certain things done in between, certain parts of rallies. But in the serve, it's almost the same thing, right? Like,
100%.
you have to go through your entire service motion from the time the ball leaves your hand and the time you actually make contact with the ball. So, like, you think about how long a service motion takes. It doesn't take that long. So, like, the toss doesn't need to be that high. Those two things need to be matched perfectly. You don't want too much time. You don't want too little time. And it's very hard to give yourself too little time to hit a serve. So it's like, you often hear coaches say, like, the easiest way to fix a serve is to bring that toss down. A lot, don't toss it as high, because like you mentioned, you don't want to get to any part of the serve and have to stop and lose energy. Yeah, you want to keep that thing moving. Yeah,
I used to tell the expression with my juniors. I probably told you this. Your serve is leaking power.
Yeah.
The longer you wait, the further out, too far you hit it. You're leaking power. And the longer you have to hold that load, the more you have to work on timing it. All those are moments where you are leaking power and you're not really connecting. You're not getting that snap at the true apex that you could.
Yeah. Okay. So I always appreciate a good coach's corner trip, especially in the middle of the segment.
Yeah.
I kind of maybe this is a little out of place, but I want to kind of tackle it now. I think the person we haven't mentioned, which I think is the elephant in the room, is probably Carlos Alcaraz. And right now, our boy's he's in a place right now. Like, ever since losing to Novak in the Australian Open, he just kind of seems like he's, we talked about his performance in Indian Wells. Okay, whatever. He won Rotterdam before that. Fine. But we get here to this event. He comes off of a, decent run in the desert. Okay, lost a weird one to Draper, but I expected him to, like, really put his foot down, reassert himself. That's what you're looking for, a 4-time Grand Slam champion. And my man just loses his first match to David Goffin. I mean, in the year of our Lord 2025, like, what are we talking about here? Like, what are we talking? And he played horribly. He played horribly. So I'm putting him as, of players that I've got my eye on, like, just my list. He is at the top of it right now. And that's probably a little unfair, but we expect things from Carlos, and maybe he's showing us who he is in the fact that he can kind of come in and out of dominant tennis and show us some ugly stuff, in between.
I think some of that's maturity. I think a lot of it is going through the phase of what he expects of himself. Um, there was a former partner of mine had a great quote that his old coach at College of Charleston told him, "Can you win on a bad day?" And I think the genius of that statement is most people can win on a good day. Can you win on a bad day? These past two tournaments, Alvin, are 2 weeks long. You include the qualies. Now, there's some breaks and some different days, right? That's what the draw and all that. But these terms are 2 weeks long. And one thing I like to always ask my players, how many bad days do you think you'll have out of 2 weeks? Do you think you'll have at least one? I said, it's likely you have two or three. You'll also have two or three really good days, right? The rest of that is in between. But you don't get to decide necessarily when those days are. The genius of the best players, I should say, the thing that needs to be appreciated with the good players, you're watching them get through. It may not have been their best day on the tennis court, but they found a way to win. And what makes the GOATs of the game, obviously your Rogers, your Nadals, and obviously Novak, is they found ways to win on some bad days, right? I have to put Carlos in that category because he's won, four slams? So
Four slams.
he's won four slams. You can't say the kid hasn't done it, right? I would take the loss itself as a blip, but I would still, like I said with Fritz, if he wants to establish himself as one of the greats in the game, he's got to be able to get through tournaments like this to play his game, or at the very least, followed up with a solid rebound tournament in Monte Carlo, Madrid, whatever the next big one is for him that he plays. And I think he will. I think the question for Carlos is, I don't want to see Carlos at a point where he's starting to question Carlos. He plays with such confidence and such athleticism and such just a pure, almost an innate sense. Some of the shots he goes for and things are almost stuff you wouldn't coach. You're sitting there holding your
Yeah.
holding your breath like, oh, don't go down the line. Oh, great shot. And
Right.
you need to have that. That's his superpower. But at the same time, you got to be able to win on a bad day. And I'm not saying that, and the two are not mutually exclusive. He can still go for that shot on the days he's on, but he has to learn how to just grind through more or less the routine matches and handle those kinds of things. Look,
So
last week
what?
Novak lost to Van der Sloot or whatever his name is, and early in he was too. So it's not uncommon that you can lose a rando match. I'm not worried about Carlos. I'm more worried about other players than I am about Carlos. But I say that to say, but he has got to learn that side of it before, in my opinion, before number five. Because
Right.
at that point, he's matured and understand it's not all about I have to be on. And I really
Right.
think that's where he's at right now, Alvin. I
So
think
maybe there's three.
he
There's
thinks he
sort of
has to
three
he has
things
to
there.
he has to be on the win, and that's
Yeah.
that's a burden.
So I think there's three things there. Like one, got to put some respect on my man, Botic van der Zandschulp's name,
Oh yeah,
and that he's
sorry,
beaten.
sorry.
Okay,
Ben
hold
Shelton.
on. In the last 7 months, no, it's been closer than that. In the last like 6 months, he's beaten Carlos Alcaraz at the U.S. Open. He takes down Nadal in Davis Cup, and then takes down Novak in Indian Wells. Look, you can't say exactly. Put that hat on. You put that hat on right now. You can't say anything about Botic van der Zandschulp. All right. Number two.
Please forgive me. 1,000 pardons.
You have to call him. Number two, there's something there. There's a little something in the air about Miami, about the tournament itself, right? These guys are, they're trekking right now, right? First it's down under, and then they hit. Some of them go indoor for a hot minute in Europe, and then they hit the Middle East, and then they come over to the States, right, to do these two tournaments that are both on hard court but play very differently in very different conditions, right? So I feel like when I was on site, like everyone just kind of looked like if they're losing matches, they're not putting up a huge fight about it. It's just kind of like, you know what? Let's go back to Europe. Let's call this done. We'll tackle these hard courts again in July or August. I'm done here. Get me on the clay. So I'm willing to caveat almost anything I see in Miami always. And then the third thing, Carlos,
both of them, the Sunshine Double, both of them. They're
Sure.
those weird. If you want to break out in the tour, those are your two. Those are your two. Those are your 4 weeks to try to break out
Sure,
on
yeah.
those two tournaments for sure.
And then the last thing, and this is I just finished reading this book. It's called the Secrets of Spanish Tennis by Chris Lewitt. He's an American guy, but he spent a lot of time in Spain, kind of working with Luis Bergera, Sergi's father, and a couple of his coaches there, and traveling around and trying to get an understanding of like what is it, what are the kind of the tenets of Spanish tennis, and it's a great read, highly recommended. Just to get an understanding. But Carlos is this new version of Spanish tennis players who grew up with the emphasis being placed on not only like the things they teach in Spain about how they approach tennis, but also more so taking the ball on the rise and playing on hard courts. It's kind of a hybrid
Hybrid,
of
sure.
the
A
of the
morphing.
two, a modernized version of Spanish tennis, sprinkled in with a little bit of a like Mario star, right? Because Carlos does the weirdest, most beautiful things we see on a tennis court. I say that to say Carlos seems to not like, what is his B game? His B game is not safe grind. I think the thing that Carlos can do on the days when he doesn't have the magic is just try to be consistent with letting his ball overwhelm his opponent. It's not necessarily where he puts that ball. His natural ground stroke is impactful.
That 100%.
It's impactful. He can draw errors just off of that ball, but I think he's so Carlos that
Yep.
it's going to take a few balls to get to that point. He wants to smash gas on ball 6, not on ball. He's not waiting to ball 10. So I think that's what makes it harder for him in 2 out of 3. Whereas like his best out of 5 record is like immaculate, right? So that's where you got
It
more
can
time to
almost,
let that kind of stuff
he
balance
has the
out.
ability to hit himself back into a match in a 3 out of
Right.
5, where in a best of 3, he's it's a little more, he needs to be more precise.
Right.
And let's be very honest, these two tournaments are known to be windy. And that for a player that's, you start overthinking and you start, kind of not hitting the ball as clean, in the wind is not a great place to work on your striking, and especially if you're feeling a little bit off. I still think it's maturity. That's a part of his game that's developed. I'm not talking about a skill set per se, so much as it is a tactic. That's something I feel like Novak's really honed in over the years. And let's look back at some of the great athletes, Alvin, that have played this game, that have taken them a while to really kind of find their groove. Lest we forget, Andre Agassi played 7 years before he won his first slam. And you could not get a more athletic, a bigger ball striking, shorter point, bigger backhand on the line, and laser forehand in the corner than Andre.
Yeah,
It
that's
took
a
him a
good point.
while to learn how to kind of harness that and win on some bad days. So I say that to say,
Well, Pete as
look,
well. Pete went kind of like after he won his first U.S. Open, and then kind of went into the World a little bit, and then
Boris Becker won Wembley back to back and didn't win another one for 6 years. Had to
I think
learn how
Fed
to
maybe
kind of
Fed
play
kind
game.
of similar. Maybe
Yeah,
Fed won his
but
first one, and
Fed
then
took
yeah,
Fed 5 years. Took Fed five
yeah,
years to kind of get on the map, and then shoot, blew the cover off after that. I think he won the next 9 out of 12. But my point being, to my point, these are things that just because he has won that early doesn't mean he's polished yet. He just happened to come in at a time, and that's why I say I'm not too worried about Carlos. Carlos is going to be fine. Keep trusting Carlos. Learn, to your point, learn a beat game. You got to have one. I think that's the thing that I would recommend. And whether it's just say for targets and knowing that that's enough, whether that's trusting your legs and your fitness on a bad day, which is what I always tell players, trust your fitness on a bad day. Make more balls. Keep it cross court. You don't have to change. That may be where he feels like he has to win, but he, in that mind, and again, another great tennis ism that I've always used, that I think is just a classic. You don't have to win. You can allow your opponent to lose.
right,
And I
right, yeah.
that to
Vast
say
majority of the time, actually.
that's the majority of the time. He's still taking the burden on himself to win. And I feel like once he learns the other side, as he understands and appreciates more, that he can do that more on a bad day. Save that big blister on the run forehand. Save that crazy break your ankle drop shot. For the days you got. The guy's so pinned so far back that it works. Again, Carlos will get that. His camp will get him right. Juan Carlos will take good care of him. Juan Carlos, that's all Juan Carlos did. So he'll get him through that. This is a part of this is a part where he has to appreciate that part of the game and not look at, but I won this way doing this. And
Right.
and I'm going to segue a little briefly here, going into Ben Shelton. Very similar. Ben has won with that going for broke, going trusting my guns, my gut, my trusting my guns, and going with my gut on my instincts, and just tagging balls, and perhaps almost to a fault because now he's having to play his normal day, and now the guys are taking away a couple of big serves. He's not getting some of those same easier wins and results. And you heard it right here, it's very difficult now to kind of adapt to a B game mentality when you think when I play my A game, I'm
Yeah,
pretty darn good.
Ben.
And that's just maturity
But Ben
and
Ben
several
is
wins from the
like
door.
Ben's like kind of weirdly between A and B game right now. Like you
Yeah,
think about Ben
agree.
Shelton when he came on tour, and everyone's like, "Oh man, that serve, that forehand." And I remember watching a couple matches, probably 2 years ago. I watched him play. I think it's Musetti, actually Musetti in Miami. That might have been 2 years ago. But yeah, I saw him play Musetti in Miami, and then I saw him play Tommy Paul in Australia, probably in the quarterfinals. Maybe that was the same year, but vice versa, or in the order. But he, my takeaway at that time was like, man, that backhand's got to get. We need to shore up that backhand, right? And I feel like he has. The backhand seems pretty
Yeah,
safe right
yeah.
now.
And he's
It's
slicing
definitely,
more and
yeah, yeah.
putting
I
more
I
balls in
feel I
play.
feel confident that that thing's not going to break down.
Right.
But then like I'm also feeling less of the pop and the aggression on the other wing, right? It's like he's like the first serve's almost
He's
gotten
like he's taking
safe.
10 miles an hour off to land
Yeah,
more of them.
first serve's gotten
Sure.
safe. The forehand's even gotten safe, but it's like, well, what's safe really gonna get you? Like he's kind of in between gears. Like where like I think, and he's also young, right? And he's trying to
Hundred
figure it.
percent,
They're
he
all
needs
trying to
to
figure it out,
and he needs to
right?
develop that and put himself out there. I saw him in his first match, or one of his first matches, 3 years ago at the Atlanta Open when he played Isner in the
Yeah, yeah.
quarter and lost in a sixth and the third, and literally had John ready to retire right then and there. I mean, it was a great match. I saw him when he first came out. Uh, Shout out to Ben and his dad Brian, who I know very well. The To your point, the arm was so live, you felt like it was elastic in that shoulder. I mean, like he was just, like it was a slingshot. It was come out off so big. I was like you. I think he has dialed it back a little bit, maybe at the expense of pop. But again, and we mentioned just a minute ago in Coach's Corner, bring the targets in, continue to fire. And I think that's one of the things. What again, he'll get better at. Tough to. He's another guy with a pretty high toss, and really likes to get out there in the court. A few degrees here and there. A 16-mile-an-hour wind and 25-mile-an-hour gust does a few things to a tennis ball. So
Yeah,
if you're off
yeah.
by a couple inches, especially at that speed and that level, that can throw some things off. So, but again,
You
I
know,
really
we
feel like I'm not concerned. It's not like he can't get it again. It's not like he's gone through reconstructive surgery and will never swing that big again. He just has to get back to a point where he trusts it and really finds that second gear and feels good about going for it again. And whatever that's going to take. That could be one part maturity and one part just some confidence and going through some draws and beat some people and kind of feeling his ups again a little bit.
I've got two more players on my ATP watch list, if I will. And another one is
Watch is
our
in trouble or watch is in up and coming.
no, watch is in trouble. I think we've covered. I only had two players really that I'm happy with, like truly happy with and happy for on the ATP tour right now, and that's Yao Fonseca and Jack Draper actually. Like I feel like coming into the first quarter of this year, you know what, these guys haven't necessarily been here before. I know Jack semifinal U.S. Open last year, and maybe he shouldn't have, but
Yeah.
he has become the player that that has semifinal to a U.S. Open. So be it. Fine. And then Fonseca, I think we've talked about him at nauseum, and everyone else is talking about him as well. Like
Yeah.
it's coming. If he's kind of like the it's coming, it's happening. Pay
For
attention.
sure.
The fans are turning out for his matches. Like it's not on the way.
Right.
It's here.
Right.
So I
It's
don't
not
even want to
not
spend.
if it's when.
Yeah, I don't need to. We don't need to spill much ink on what those guys have done through the first 3 months of the season. On my watch list, our brother in melanin, Francis Tiafo. We are at about 27, 28 years old now.
Yep.
I'm seeing some signs for concern. I don't know where we go with Francis from here. And I'm starting to feel like Francis doesn't know where Francis goes from here. either. Um, Results have been shaky.
At best.
At best, he carries himself like I think he always will, like the man. But when he goes onto the court, especially the younger players don't fear him one bit, and I don't know that they should. To quite honestly, he is a gamer. He is scrappy. He will come up with things. I think he mixes up game styles as well as anyone on the tour. But when it comes to just kind of chirping through the first 3 rounds of every tournament, like pretty automatically, I saw some bad stuff in Dallas when I was there. I saw some bad stuff this week before I even got there. Um, I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm concerned, and I don't know that clay is the surface that's going to get me out of concern.
Right. He might be better on grass, honestly. But
for sure.
And so but he's going to need a good Wemby. Let's peel back 10,000 feet. The anatomy, the shelf life of the quick and scrappy tends to be about 10 years.
Sure.
You can look at whoever you want to look at. And it always peaks early. They just hang on through attrition, through reputation, through savvy. You can go back. I'll go back as far as Michael Chang. I'll go back to Leighton Hewitt, um, Mats Wilander. I'm trying to give you some other players that were on the short and scrappy. I'll even throw in, for good measure, Olivier Rochus and his brother. Right, you got these players that have been on the shorter side that have found ways to be Davidenko. Here's a great one. A player
that's a really good one.
So you kind of get where I'm going with
Guillermo Correa.
Guillermo Correa.
Correa is probably
Juan Carlos. Let's put him in there. 100%. You get what I'm getting at. The players that have, had the ability to, they were good. And by the way, all the players were very good. I want to say of the ones we mentioned were several Grand Slams and were good, like good, like
one in the world good.
One in the world good, which is not good. That's great, right? So I say that so that we're clear. They had 10-year shelf lives. There was a peak. They weren't ever as good after the peak, and as farther time progressed, because everything depended so much on that speed, on that level of burst, as they got just a tiny bit slower for whatever reason, older, dinged up, whatever you want to call it, their games were never as potent later on. I feel like that may be the territory that Francis is treading. I would never tell a fighter like him that he's done, because only he can tell me when he's done. But I will tell you, it's starting to show his body may be showing some signs of that 10-year shelf life. And it's unfortunate because he's a great talent and he's such an entertainer on the tennis court. But at that age, right? And Francis has been out there, 8-9 years now, on the tour doing his thing. He is no longer the spring chicken that he once was. And it's not like that style. It's not like he can lean back on his big serve. It's not like he can lean back on his just crazy huge forehand or something. He has to grind. He has to. And at that level, the war of attrition takes it out of you. So I agree with you on that one. I think that's a tough one for him. And to be honest, I don't know what that means. It'll be a sad day to see his continued early exits, but and I think there's another downshift left in his career. He'll figure something out. A guru, a coaching change, a racket change, something, fitness, something. He'll figure something. He's just too competitive not to. But again, even that it'll still fall within that 10-year. I feel thing. It's just historic, Alvin. It's just something. Father Time is undefeated, and I feel like his game isn't so varied that he can find another way to win without the grind and taking those death of 1,000 cuts. So I think you're absolutely right to put him on the watch list. To be honest with you.
Yeah, and he's sitting at 5-5 on the year, and I don't like to use these types of stats. I don't put too much into them, but all things considered, and we've been on surfaces that he tends to do well on fast courts. It's not good. Second round exit in Australian Open, third round exit in Dallas, of all places. and then again round 16 Acapulco, 32 Indian Wells, round 32 in Miami. Like we're not going the right direction.
100%, 100%. But the
I put
year's
it on
still
him
early.
to,
The year's still
yeah, the
early.
years are early.
And so you can't get too nervous just yet. But to your point, it is cause for concern, and he will certainly need some bigger tournaments and a very solid, dare I say, Wemby and that quick grass court season to kind of have some research. And he's got the confidence that if he's playing well and returning well, he can take down a couple of guys who aren't as adept on the grass. So that
Yeah,
part
oh
I
for sure.
like his game for as well. Heading back to the U.S. Open, I certainly think he's certainly a player to watch for. But yeah, you've already started to kind of lower your expectation of him a little bit, just because of what you haven't seen recently. And as I say, you look at those players I mentioned. Each one of them had a bit of an early surge within the 5 years of that career, and then they kind of faded there toward the end. So that's again that's just history. That's just the
And
tendency of that style.
my last one, who's maybe not necessarily maybe similar size and stature, but very different game style, would be Andre Rublev. Rublev caught a bad draw, probably caught a bad draw in Australian, right? He got Fonseca in the first round, and we've all come to see what he's really all about. But it hasn't. I don't think my man hasn't done well. Australia, Indian Wells, Miami, 0 wins, 0 wins. So he's perennial top 10, right? Always making year-end finals, which makes me think. And he's coming into clay, where he's actually pretty good on clay, which you wouldn't think. I mean, I think he beat Novak in a Masters 1000 not that 2-3 years ago in the final. So like on clay, I think maybe Monte Carlo, but I'm less concerned about him. I'm just saying, at some point it happens for everyone, and you're starting to see that he's not the guys like him who would be 6 through 10 are now starting to show up.
Sure.
The younger versions who do it maybe just a little bit better. And not to say that Andre's game is slipping. It's just like these people, kind of like how I view Felix, right?
Yeah.
It's not you. It's you compared to everyone else. You're probably the exact same player. It's just all the
He
younger
raised their
ones.
game.
Yeah, all the younger ones behind you who have a higher ceiling are just coming to take your place, right?
I saw some encouraging news today. He has tapped one of the all-time faves of TH, Marat Safin,
Marat
to
Safin, let's
be
go,
his coach.
baby.
So
Let's
I'm
go,
just telling
baby.
you, if anybody, you remember several years back when Novak tapped Goran to be the head coach, and it was in the camp.
Yeah,
It takes crazy to know crazy, and,
absolutely.
and I think that Safin will be able to talk.
So
Andre,
is this official? Like, I know he's been kind of in his ear, and I know like
I just I just I just saw it on my ticker earlier today.
okay. This is fantastic.
Here, and that to me is the best news I've heard for Andre Rublev. Rublev will now have an opportunity. If we can get him from going Rublev to Roblox, and where he's just an almost the automaton that he needs to be, and just
So
bashing balls
what
in. Because he has the kind of game, Alvin. You talk about a guy that just needs to be able to go keep across court and just penetrate you all the heck. He's a guy that I feel has enough firepower. If he just trusted his game, he's like a Soderling. He's like Safin. I mean, the guy just can crush a darn ball. And so all the changing, all the trying to crush the ball off the line and thread the needle, dude, you hit routinely 90-mile-an-hour plus off both sides. You don't need anyone changing. Just land that
just war of
concrete.
attrition?
Just more of attrition. Get yourself in phenomenal shape. Maybe like Seth and show up in the box with two
Yeah, maybe
fifth
listen up a
fatales
little bit.
and just be crazy with it a little bit.
Maybe
Let's
listen
have
up a
some
little
fun out
bit.
here. We're gambling, baby. And I think nobody can speak to him except the master himself, who tamed crazy long enough. As my main
I'm just
member.
happy we're gonna see more Marat Safin around. This is great. Like we're in this renaissance right now where like the guys from the 90s and early 2000s are starting to come back around. Like I love seeing more Agassi out and about.
Yep.
Now Safin, like this is good.
Goran,
Like this is
Goran's almost an institution now. He's been out there with a couple players now.
yeah, but
Murray,
guys like
Murray and Novak's box, which is not quite that old, but still, you're
Yeah.
starting to see the old ones come back. I'm just telling you, that's the best news I've heard for Andre, and I think you're right. I'll be very honest with you. One of my players on my watch list is Daniil. I feel like Daniil has not made many changes. I said this to you in the Open when he
Yeah.
played.
Yeah.
Who did he play? He played the young Thai kid. I forget the kid's name. Uh, kid had a
Tien? Oh no, the first round Australian. I know you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
played this kid, Alvin. I'm telling you, there was a look on his face that he was blown away. Like, who is this kid? And I saw the same look on Stefano's face. I saw the same look on his face. So I see this look like, who are these kids? Like, where do they come from? It wasn't I saw that look on Isner's face when Ben Shelton played him 3 years ago at the Open at Atlanta Open. Like, who is this kid? Like, nobody serves this big for this long. I know. I've been out here for 15 years, right? And it was just this look of disbelief. Daniil is showing me that right now. And I think I wish there was a coach that I could look at and say, this is what we're going to have to do. But I feel like he might need to reach back and grab that coach or something of that stature himself to really, really kind of redefine his
He
game a little
did.
bit.
He did just separate with his longtime coach recently. I don't think he's announced a new coach quite yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I'm piggybacking on what you said with Rublev. I feel like, dude, you got to get a coach, somebody who has some belief in you, and get you going. Zverev is always a question mark for me. Losing the Feast wasn't a terrible loss, but in fourth round. But again,
he lost to Feast in Munich last year. Like Feast beats him. Like he just beats him.
It's just a tough matchup for him. I get that. Again, great win for Feast, especially with him losing later on to Mensik. I just feel like I'm still waiting for him to continue to chomp through and build a momentum case, taking him into his first slam. And I've not seen that just yet, and I'd love to. And I feel like
I'll raise the question: what have you seen that makes you think that that's coming?
What makes me think that it's coming is that Sinner is still out, Alcaraz is troubled, and Novak's 37, almost 38 years old. If there is a time for it to happen, it's now. And that's what makes me think. He's too close not to, and he's right there. That's what makes me think it's coming.
So you think he's going to think if someone's going to fall into one, it's going to be him?
That's what you're saying. If someone's going to fall in and be able to actually do the deed while he's in it, it certainly is in our 5 through 10. It will be Alexander /
That's an interesting question. Okay. Let me pose this to you then. Carlos does a Carlos and loses in the second round of French Open. Let's say Sinner's going to be there because he's coming back. I think he comes back. Rome is his first event back, which is right before French Open. But let's say he's just not ready. Third round exit, right? Let's say Novak, he's broken down by then. Third round exit. Do you think, okay, week 1 is over and Novak, Carlos, and Yannick are out of the tournament? Do you feel like Zverev actually has what it takes to then see himself to the finish line, regardless of who's in his path?
I'm going to answer this 2 ways. Number one, yes. Number one, yes. He has the game to do it. He has experience to do it. Number 2, I hate that all of those people in your scenario faded. It's better for him if at least half of them are still there, because I feel like the moment would get too big for him. It would be his to choke if it goes the other way around. And that's just my personal belief.
Gosh.
It's a dominant team match of 5-6 years ago, or 7 years ago. I would love for him to beat Carlos on his way too. I would love for him to beat Novak on his way too. And then at that point, in Sasha's brain, I've earned this. Not I don't blow this. Do I think he can do it? 1,000%. Heck, the kid just got to the final, for crying out loud, in Australia. I know the kid can do it. It's a
final Australia, final French Open. Like he's
we know final US Open when he lost the team. We know the kid can do it. I feel he's the next best threat past those 3 players, which is to your point. And if those players are up and down, there's a good chance. Now, back to your point about Sinner. Sinner, and I don't want to get too off the deep end here. Sinner will come back like he never left.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be.
You heard it right here. These type of situations, Sinner's out right now training right now. Sinner will pick up where he left off. Like, y'all should have had me. Y'all should have won while you had a chance.
Yeah.
Novak,
Yeah.
you only can hope. The tennis coach in me, the purist in me, hopes he's healthy. But at 37, 38, there's always
you never know. So
and he's
sliding
playing
around on clay, weird things
around
happen.
on clay. He's just not playing a limited schedule, but he's completely dialed in. He just can't affect his own health to that level, not anymore. And Carlos, again, I'm hoping for Carlos' sake that he has a great French, just because obviously that's the dirt. And that's what while he's arguably as good, if not better, on grass and hard court, he's certainly not terrible on clay. So I'm just hoping.
Reigning French Open champions, not terrible on clay.
You get what I'm trying to say. So I just feel like he's one of those kind of players where I would tell you that I would almost say the grass, he's almost better on grass, ironically, just because of his movement. And I feel like he doesn't hit such a heavy ball, but he penetrates it pretty well. He covers so much darn court. He slides so darn well. It's like different parts of his game shine in different surfaces. That's why, again, I'm not worried about Carlos. But I, for Zverev's sake, hope that the three you mentioned are in it, because then he won't be in his own way. That's just my own personal, from a unofficial psychologist standpoint, hope about Sasha. I hope that he does it. I think he's got one in him, and I really think that he can do it. And honestly, I think that's going to be the real story going into the French and the whole clay court season, is who will take out Sinner and who will be waiting for him on the other side of the final when he gets there. That, to me, is going to be the real story to me in the next two tournaments. Because let's face it, Novak, if healthy, will be in that conversation.
Yeah, I think Novak. I think when you start to look at start to look forward in the clay court season, I don't see Sinner as the clear cut. Sinner is probably the best hard court player in the world right now. He's gone Australian, U.S. Open, Australian again. So I think that's there's not a lot of argument there. But on the clay court, I don't see him as being that person. I say all things equal, it's probably Carlos and then Novak and then Sinner, maybe Carlos, Sinner, then Novak, somewhere like that. It's not as straightforward,
Right.
especially when you talk about best of five. So I think it's going to be interesting how this kind of levels out, going into Q2. So I say let's. I think we've kind of fully exhausted the men's side. Maybe let's take a break here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the women Miami Open, look over Q1, and kind of take a look forward into Q2.
Right. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.